The Lions have already filled their offensive and defensive coordinator positions, so you would think for most Lions fans this would be a time of great joy. But there is a clear divide when it comes to said fans, as some do not think these hires are absolutely the best that could have been made. We're going to talk about it, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. My friends, I'm going to tell you something right now. When it comes to these hirings that the Detroit Lions made in regards to, the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator, it's one of those situations where it's like, okay, you have to kind of take things in stride a little bit because of the simple nature of the fact is that these decisions were made quickly. They were made with absolutely a swift idea of what the Lions were looking for, and they made the decisions with absolute haste as if they had already kind of pre-planned this. And if we're being honest with ourselves, it makes sense why they did it this way. Because again, as I've said before, and everybody else will agree with me, the Lions pretty much already knew they were going to lose Johnson and Glenn. They had pretty much held on to them as long as it was going to possibly be. So for them, it was like, okay, we need to have a contingency plan in place for guys that we want to be able to come in as quickly as possible that we're, comfortable with, but also feel are the best men for the job. And that's exactly what the Lions did. Now, some fans are excited and they're optimistic about these new hires of John Morton and Kelvin Shepard. However, though, there are also some on the opposite end of the scale that are perturbed and they are pessimistic about the hirings. Now, naturally, of course, there's always going to be a difference of opinion. And that's never, ever going to change. But why is there such a divide when it comes to this conversation? Why is there such an opinion gap? Simply put, when you're talking about these two gentlemen, it comes down to two main reasons: experience and recency bias. Now, let's talk about experience here really quickly first. When we're talking about experience, for the most part, I think what the biggest reason in regards to that is that Lions fans are not particularly enthralled with the fact that, one, when we're talking about Kelvin Shepard, he has never done anything else prior to this other than coach linebackers. He's not been a run game coordinator on defense. He's not been a pass game coordinator on defense. And on top of that, he doesn't have a hell of a lot of actual coaching experience. He has played a lot. He did play for quite a number of years in the NFL as a linebacker. But as far as a coach is concerned, he's relatively still green in that regard because he only started coaching back in 2021. And again, that was with his current team, the Detroit Lions. So, when you consider the fact that going into this year, he's only got 4 years of actual coaching experience, this upcoming year going to be his 5th, I know that for some Lions fans, that is a major turnoff for them because the first thing I can guarantee you that they were wanting as a replacement for Glenn was a defensive-minded coach that had had plenty of experience prior to this as either a coordinator themselves, having been, having experience as a pass game coordinator, run game coordinator, been around the NFL, had been with multiple coaches. They were looking for a seasoned defensive-minded coach because one of the biggest knocks against Glenn when he was hired and made the defensive coordinator is very much the same knocks that are being made against Kelvin Shepard. Had not really done a whole lot outside of really coaching defensive backs, cornerbacks, safeties, whatever have you. I don't even think, if I recall correctly, I could be wrong on this, but I don't even think Aaron Glenn beforehand had even been a pass or run game coordinator. So Glenn was coming into the situation as a defensive coordinator with very little experience outside of just coaching the defensive backs. Now, granted, he had more experience as far as an actual coach than Kelvin Shepard. But that's what I'm talking about here, is that a lot of Lions fans, they particularly wanted a coach that had a lot of experience, so that way that experience could be brought to the Detroit Lions defense and help take that next step for it. And I can tell you this right now, while some people would say that we're just looking for a guy with experience, I already can tell you this. What most Lions fans wanted that are not too particularly happy with the Kelvin Shepard hire or have their doubts and concerns, they were wanting one of two names. They were either wanting Robert Saleh or they were wanting Dennis Allen. Now, let me just tell you something here. I think either of those two guys would have been absolutely fantastic hires. They're both very knowledgeable. They're both very good at what they do on defense. But let's understand something here. Those hires were not going to happen. Robert Saleh was definitely not going to happen for one simple reason. Let's understand how the Lions front office has gone about their coaching hires. Virtually every single hire that the Lions have made via coaching, they have had to have a connection to either Brad Holmes or Dan Campbell at some point in the past. There has to have already been an established relationship somewhere. That has been virtually the case every single hire that has been made. So, okay, has Robert Saleh had any sort of interaction with Dan Campbell or Brad Holmes as a coach prior to this? No, he has not. So that right there already put him at a huge disadvantage, regardless of the experience he brought. Now, Dennis Allen, on the other hand, definitely had that with Dan Campbell. But the point of the matter was that wasn't going to happen because Johnson had already swooped in and had snagged Dennis Allen to be his defensive coordinator with the Bears. So at that point then, the Lions decided that, okay, we need to go with somebody else that we're comfortable with. And that's why I believe they went and decided to go with Kelvin Shepard because, again, as I stated, he's been very familiar with the team, been with them since 2021, so since the beginning. Plus, on top of that, because of the fact that, Glenn had been tutoring, mentoring, grooming him to be a natural defensive coordinator, replacement for him, it just made a lot of sense. I know that for the Lions fans that don't like to hear that, that's not something they're going to be comforted by. But again, you have to give the Lions a chance here to say, okay, we're going to see what happens because they've earned that. Campbell and Holmes have definitely earned that. You cannot tell me they haven't earned it when every stinking year we have improved dramatically. You go from 3-13-1 to 9-8 to 12-5 to 15-2. You're seeing improvement every year, which means, okay, simply put, they know what the hell they're doing. So they've earned the ability to say, hey, we can make this decision. You can trust us that we know what we're doing. And so, as I said in a previous episode, I'm going to trust what's going on here as far as the decision with Kelvin Shepard. Because I do agree. The Kelvin Shepard hire, while I do like it, it does have a lot of question marks because it's like, okay, here. He is popular with the players on defense. He does have their respect. He does know the culture. He's got all that. But how is that going to translate to when he actually is the defensive coordinator? That's the main question. I would like to think that Glenn did a pretty good job of actually mentoring him because, well, let's think about it. I would say that probably for at least the last 2 years, he probably has been doing that. Plus, Shepard, unlike Glenn, is going to have that mentoring factor, so he's already going to have a leg up versus when Glenn didn't really have that when he came into the job in 2021. Plus, on top of that, Shepard has got an absolutely much more stable and talented defense than Glenn had when he started in 2021. So Shepard's already got a lot more things going for him coming into the job than Glenn did. So, I understand why people are not too particularly enthralled about that. And that in and of itself also plays into the recency bias with Glenn. Because of the fact that Glenn has had the people that don't particularly like the fact that they viewed him as stubborn, unwilling to change, they didn't like his scheme, they're thinking that Shepard is going to do much of the same thing. We don't know that just yet. Shepard could change things up. He might keep some things that were from Glenn's original scheme, but we don't know. So until we do know, we can't already start judging and making assumptions on what he may or may not do. We have to wait and see. So, that's Kelvin Shepard. Now, when it comes to the other hire of John Morton, this one just absolutely blows my mind. I cannot understand why there are people who look at this hiring of John Morton with anything except absolute excitement and just, anxious arrival and await of when we actually get a chance to see him coach. Because, dude, you take a look at John Morton. I already talked about him yesterday in my episode at a somewhat, decent length as far as, okay, this is what this guy has done in the past with quarterbacks like Drew Brees, Bo Nix. This is what he can do definitely with Jared Goff. This is what guys like John Gruden have talked about him as. And it's all very positive. It's all very reassuring to say, okay, this guy definitely will have the capability of taking this offense, one of the best offenses, if not the best offense in football over the last 3 years, to yet another level. But yet, as I saw in my comment section yesterday, there are people that think that it is in essence just a, how do I put this, kind of like a parallel hire. I remember seeing one comment in the comment section that said that they equated it to being like getting Diet Coke from the original Coke formula. And I'm like, that literally makes no sense. Because Morton is original Coke, whereas freaking Johnson was Diet Coke. Because again, as I stated, Morton was the one that mentored Johnson and also Tanner. So to say that Morton is somehow Diet Coke or he's just kind of like a step down or a slightly, watered down version to Johnson is absolutely ludicrous. And then there are people that wanted to point out that somehow Woodward Sports doesn't like the hire. They say it's like a C or C plus hire. And it's like, dude, first and foremost, Woodward Sports' opinion on most things when it comes to this, I equate to having about as much weight as hydrogen, which for those that are not science nerds, hydrogen is the lightest element in the freaking universe. So let that tell you what I think of that opinion. The point of the matter is here. Let's think about this. What's the biggest knock when it comes to Morton that people that have an issue with him? Here's the first knock. He's only been an offensive coordinator for 1 year in his 26, near 30 years of coaching. So for them, that's a problem because if he's such a great offensive mind, if he is such a great offensive schemer and strategist, why has he only been an offensive coordinator for 1 year? The second thing that falls with that is the performance within that 1 year as an offensive coordinator. Because who was he the offensive coordinator for that 1 year? The New York Jets in 2017. Okay, here's where that recency bias falls also into this category. You're going to try and base your entire opinion on John Morton off of one lone season that happened, almost 10 years ago. Let's keep some things in perspective here. I understand that with Ben Johnson, or as I call him now, Benedict Johnson, having just left and, giving us the fourth highest scoring offense of all time, that, again, that also plays into this recency bias because it's like, hey, you're thinking, for those that don't like the John Morton hire or have their reserves or questions, that how could it possibly be that Morton is going to be a better version or a better upgrade than what we had in Johnson? Let me show you how. Let me show you why. Again, as I said yesterday, Johnson didn't have the kind of experience, not only in terms of actual time in the NFL, but also in terms of being a coordinator of any type. Again, Johnson was not a passing game coordinator or an offensive coordinator at any point prior to becoming the Lions offensive coordinator. John Morton can say he's been that several times over. He's been passing game coordinator for multiple teams. He's been an offensive coordinator for the New York Jets. So that's already something that he's got a massive leg up on in relation to Johnson. But let's take a look at how Morton did in that 2017 season as the offensive coordinator, because that's what a lot of people have a problem with. Because all they see is that, the New York Jets that year offensively were not that good. Because if you take a look at the stats, It doesn't show a pretty picture if you just look at it face value. But you can't just look at it face value. You have to go deeper. You have to analyze things for what they truly are. So the best way to do that is say, okay, John Morton was the offensive coordinator in 2017, right? Well, what was the offense of the Jets like in 2016, the year prior to him getting there? Oh, now you're going to see why I say John Morton is not getting a fair shake here by a lot of fans who are having questions about him. Let me show you exactly what I mean here. I'm going to put this up on the screen so that way you guys can see this. On one side of the equation, you're going to see the 2016 Jets. On the other side, you're going to see the 2017 Jets. 2017 was John Morton's year, right? 2016 is the year prior to that. Notice the statistical stats and rankings between the two seasons. You're going to notice something really, really damn quickly. 2017, while the overall stats might be a little bit lower in some areas, notice the difference in the rankings. 2017 Jets compared to the rest of the league in 2017 is significantly better than the 2016 Jets compared to the rest of the league in that year. So wait a minute. John Morton comes in as a first-time offensive coordinator for the New York Jets, a team the prior year was much worse offensively as far as rankings were concerned, and he improves it across the board except for 3 spots. Think about that. Every single offensive parameter that I have up there was improved except for 3 things. So for a first-time offensive coordinator, that's not damn bad at all. But when you actually look at it even deeper, it looks even much more amazing than that. Because let me put this out there for you. You want to know who freaking John Morton had as his skill position guys in 2017? Here's who he had. His quarterback was Josh McCown. We all better remember who he is, because he's played for us in the past. Who was his running back? His running back was a guy by the name of Bilal Powell. Not really a big name. Who were his wide receivers? Guys by the name of Robbie Chosen, who's been known in the past as Robbie Anderson, and Jermaine Kearse. Decent names, but nothing really major to write home about. And his tight end, a guy by the name of Austin Safarian Jenkins. Again, not really a big name. So in essence here, the 2017 Jets skill positions are in essence a whole lot of nobodies and journeyman players. And yet somehow, freaking John Morton was able to take that group and perform better than the 2016 Jets. And just to add further insult to injury here, how good was the freaking Jets offensive line in 2017? According to PFF, it was the 30th ranked offensive line overall. So wait a minute here. He performed better than the previous year with a second from the bottom offensive line, with a journeyman quarterback and a bunch of journeyman or pretty much nobody players for an offense. Okay, that right there ought to definitely get people's attention. But wait, it only gets better, because if you start going even further into it, you're going to notice something else. I just gave you the guys' names of who were the 2017 skill players. You want to take a wild guess who were the skill position players for the Jets in 2016? Oh, this is going to freaking blow your socks off. In 2016, the Jets' skill players were Ryan Fitzpatrick, so Fitzmagic. You had also Bilal Powell was also there as well, because he was there the previous year in 2016. And then you had for wide receivers, you had Brandon Marshall. Yeah, that Brandon Marshall. And you also had the rookie year of Robbie Anderson, also now known as Robbie Chosen. And you also had, again, Austin Safarian Jenkins, who was traded midseason from the Bucs to the Jets. So, okay, just at face value, the 2016 skill position players are immensely better than what the 2017 version is, because I would say Ryan Fitzpatrick is a better quarterback than Josh McCown. They were both journeymen, but Ryan Fitzpatrick has had much more success over his career than McCown has had. Brandon Marshall, definitely an upgrade over freaking, Jermaine Kearse, who he replaced in 2017. And Robbie Chosen, still a journeyman wide receiver. But let me show you guys something here as far as how this actually really breaks down. Let me show you this. If you take a look at the stats of the 2016 skill players, and I'm going to put them up on the screen in just like a large sort of thing, so that way we're not going individually one by one. But notice this. Ryan Fitzpatrick that year was abysmal as a quarterback. More interceptions than touchdowns, sub 70 passer rating, sub 60 completion percentage rate. Powell, just a little over 700 yards, only 3 rushing touchdowns. Had a nice rush average of 5.5 per pop. Brandon Marshall, less than 1,000 yards receiving, only 3 receiving touchdowns. Robbie Chosen, his rookie year, less than 600 yards receiving, only 2 receiving touchdowns. And then Austin Seferian-Jenkins, who only played like 7 games that year for the Jets, he had 10 catches for 110 yards, no touchdowns. So in 2016, these skill position players who, at face value, at least at quarterback and wide receiver, are better than the 2017 version, they didn't do pretty damn well. They actually did rather horrid. How did the 2017 skill position players do? Oh, now you're going to see something here. Take a look at Josh McCown from 2017. He had career highs in completion percentage, yards, and passing touchdowns, and he had the second highest passer rating of his career. And notice the difference there just between McCown versus Fitzpatrick the year before. McCown was 10% completion percentage higher than freaking Ryan Fitzpatrick. Had almost 200, actually had 200 more passing yards, had 6 more passing touchdowns, and almost double, how do I put this, had half of the amount of interceptions, and almost had a 100 passer rating compared to Ryan Fitzpatrick's sub 70. Powell, his second year with the freaking Jets, his best NFL season, his most yards rushing, and his most rushing touchdowns. Robbie Chosen, second year with the Jets. Oh, career high in receiving touchdowns and his second most receiving yards of his career in a single season. And then you have Jermaine Kearse, career highs in receptions, in receiving yards, and his career high he tied his career high for receiving touchdowns that year. And then Austin Seferian-Jenkins, that was his career high in both receiving yards and receptions. So wait a minute here. In 2017, with in essence a makeshift offense with journeyman and pretty much nobody talent players, John Morton was able to perform better than Ryan Fitzpatrick, Brandon Marshall, and all these other guys in 2016. So that right there is already impressive. But what makes it even more impressive is not only did he perform better than that group, the guys that he had, they all virtually had their best years with him. Best years of their career. Think about that. These are guys like Josh McCown who had been in the league up to that point 14, 15 years? These are guys that had been in the game for a long time, and they were having their best season with him as the offensive coordinator. And then, the last thing I want to bring up here, 2016 was a bad year for the Jets offense considering the talent they had. But you want to know what makes it even worse? Virtually the same amount of guys that I'm talking about here, like Fitzpatrick and Marshall, they were on that 2015 Jets team that was freaking just out of the blue nowhere. It was one of the biggest surprise teams in 2015. And they were that damn close to going to the playoffs. 2015 was Ryan Fitzpatrick's best year as a quarterback, if I recall correctly. So the fact that you have 2015 Jets that just falls off the freaking face of the earth in 2016, and then John Morton comes in with a makeshift offense and is able to perform better than the previous season and gives career highs in production to virtually all of his skill position players, which again are primarily journeymans and nobodies, and you all are trying to tell me that this is not a good hire. John Morton is able to take a whole bunch of nobodies, is able to give them the best seasons of their careers with a makeshift offense with the New York Jets, and now he's coming into Detroit with the best offensive ensemble of talent in the NFL. You have a top 5 quarterback in Jared Goff. You have the best running back duo in freaking Gibbs and Montgomery, Sonic and Knuckles. You have freaking Jamison Williams, who is a speed demon out of hell. You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's probably one of, if not the most consistent receiver in the NFL. You have a great blocking and receiving tight end in Sam Laporta. And, oh, by the way, you also have one of the best offensive lines in football. But yet somehow you want to take Woodward's sports assessment of this is just a C grade kind of hire, or because of the fact that he had a really poor year with the Jets, that somehow that's going to be the basis of your evaluation, that this guy is not going to cut it in comparison to Johnson, the guy, by the way, who he mentored to build this offense, to give the structure to this offense that's been a top 5 best offense last year. This is why I say, folks, you have to do your damn research. Do not just take somebody else's word for it, especially somebody like Woodward Sports, who all they care about is ratings. They're going to push out whatever narrative they like just to get ratings, just to get views. I don't give a damn about views. I give a damn about truth. I give a damn about giving you guys the most accurate information I can possibly give you. That's why I don't sell stuff. That's why I don't try to push narratives. That's why I don't try to sell you guys false information. I give you exactly what is there, and I am convicted about it because it's the damn truth. That's all I got. I don't go anywhere else with what I have. If it's bad, I call it what it is. If it's good, I call it what it is. And I'm telling you right now, the John Morton hire is an excellent hire. Like I said yesterday, criminally genius, the fact that the Lions were able to get away with it. Like I also said, I'm still a little, trying to see what happens with Kelvin Shepard, but I have faith because I trust what Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have done in the past. And I believe, again, you should too. They have not steered us wrong yet. So again, take these hirings and be happy about them. Don't be upset because you didn't get some big-name hotshot coach like a Robert Saleh or a John Gruden or somebody else. These are guys that know what they're doing, and the fact that Campbell and Holmes trust them, that's all that she wrote. And the fact that you have the information that I just provided about John Morton, not only today, but yesterday, that ought to excite the ever-living hell out of this fan base. It excites me, beyond no shadow of a doubt. But anyway, folks, I'm going to end this episode. Hopefully you guys are able to take something good from it. And having said that, I'm going to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I encourage you all to watch the next episode. Also encourage you all to do one of these 3 things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and forgot to do so at the time, I want to highly encourage you all, please, to make sure you hit that bell notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content I push out. Also want to encourage you all to share the content. Share here on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Share anywhere and everywhere you possibly can. And with that being said, to everybody, I hope you all enjoyed the content. Hope you all got something out of the content. Whether this is the first time watching me, you guys have been watching me for, however many days, months, years, whatever the case might be, I truly hope you enjoyed it and you got something out of it. Also hope everyone out there has something in their life that makes them happy, makes them smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.